Welcome, thanks for joining me, astrologer Patrick Arundell, for the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the journey of the fleet-footed Mercury, the winged messenger, through the sign of Gemini, which it rules, which begins on the 3rd of June for 15 days. I will explore the themes of Mercury in Gemini, but also, as Mercury arrives, it's met by the exuberant energies of Jupiter. What does that mean? They both angle to the position of Pluto, the planet of transformation in the air sign of Aquarius. I will share that with you too. And the event chart, based on Placidus, shows that Mercury's in the 11th house of the collective. I will go through that, but also share the solar event chart as well. Now on the 14th there is a cazimi, a Mercury cazimi, when the Sun and the position of Mercury are completely unified, which provides greater radiance and magnificence to Mercury, but they are squaring up with Saturn, the planet of limitation. What does that mean? And also from the 16th to the 18th, Mercury, as it moves forwards, is in a right angle to Neptune, like Saturn, in the sign of feeling, Pisces. So a lot to get through. Then I'll go through each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what you can expect over this next 2 weeks in terms of your ascendant, sun or your moon. If you're new to my channel, it's great to have your company. If you have any thoughts, please do share them. This is very much a community. If you're a returning visitor, all your views and interactions are truly appreciated. Now, if you'd like to have a one-to-one with me, I am a consultant astrologer. Please check out my testimonials by clicking on the link beneath this video. I don't edit these as they come in, I share as is. Also, if you'd like to get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, please see the link below. I don't just provide your horoscope from Aries to Pisces, I also provide the overview of each day, so the key planetary influence, and that helps us to see the big picture as well as enjoy our forecast for each day. If you would like to ascend above zodiac astrology and understand more about the influences you were given at birth, if you give me 3 pieces of personal birth data, of time, date and place, I can produce for you your life roadmap report, which will give you searing insights into what makes you tick and how to use the energies you were given more effectively, future forwards. And also my special package of 30% off, you can get your 12 months transits, the moving planets in the sky interacting with your unique blueprint. Now, if you know your tropical natal astrology, why not check out my draconic package, your soul or karmic energies. These are the energies we come into the world with. The tropical natal influences are what we evolve into in this life. Draconic is absolutely gripping. Please see below for more. Finally, if you are a Patreon, thank you so much for all your support. You can download a factoid if you are a patron all about Mercury. So Mercury arrives in the sign of Gemini, which it rules, and stays there through to the 17th of June, so 15 days. This really pushes us to use our mind in a more agile and quick way. Mercury's influence of the sign of Gemini is obviously mercurial, so think of the magician in terms of the tarot card. So if we set our intentions, we can use our thoughts in a very potent way over this next couple of weeks. And this could be about sharing ideas that we already have, our enthusiasms, enjoying some sparkling chit chat, and in a very engaging and fun way. There can be a bit of mischief about Mercury in Gemini for sure, but also this can promote our curiosity or inquisitiveness, particularly because Jupiter is laying in wait. Now they're going to come together in an exact conjunction on the 4th of June. But if we think about the archetype of Jupiter, very much about growth, optimism and critically good fortune. But beyond that, it is also about philosophies, and it can be about faith. So we could find ourselves thinking about things in quite an expansive way. It's also possible that we may encounter someone who has a different belief system or different views to us, and we're encouraged to be open-minded, not to be too stuck in our ways, because, of course, not only is Mercury in Gemini influenced by the energy of air, it's also a mutable sign. So the more we can flex, the better it is. So we can gain greater understanding by sharpening up our listening skills. And one of the ways that we can do this with Jupiter in the mix is to broaden our understanding. So we could gain some new insights at this time, which can be very fortunate. But if we are negotiating a contract, or we are wanting to travel, or we're involved with technology, this can be an extremely exciting time. But if you have ideas, you're a speaker or a writer or even a musician who wants to get across your creativity, you can do so with aplomb with Jupiter in the mix. But what about that angle back to Pluto? Well, people who have Mercury-Pluto aspects in their natal charts tend to have a very penetrating intellect. An ability to have the discussion in these two air signs of Gemini for Mercury and Aquarius for Pluto, but actually decipher from that a lot of information, and an ability to cut through, to get right to the nub of what something is really about. So if you are someone who is very observant and perceptive, those skills at the present time are going to be turned up to max. If you're someone who has perhaps been a little bit more chilled out, you may notice some things over the next couple of weeks that could have quite a profound impact upon you. But what about that cazimi? Well, this is when the Sun and Mercury are combined. We get quite a few each year, but this one, the energy builds up in terms of the conjunction from the 12th to the 16th, but the exact cazimi is the 14th. The energies of the Sun amplifies Mercury. This is a superior cazimi or conjunction because Mercury's not in a retrograde, but this can warm up our sharpness and amplify our desire to articulate our message. The problem is that Saturn is in the sign of Pisces. If we think about the overall zodiac, that's house 12, the subconscious, but can be to do with secret enemies. So we need to be cautious about how we use information, particularly from the 16th to the 18th and exactly on the 17th when Mercury squares up with Neptune. The distortion of information, which I believe is a major problem because people will distort information to suit agendas. So we're in that post-truth era, if you like. So it will be important, if we're discussing anything that's really important to us, that we cut through and really understand where someone may be trying to manipulate us in some way. But that's why that trine to Pluto can be such an asset at the outset of this journey. Now I'm showing on the screen now the event chart from a solar perspective, and of course that puts Mercury in house 3. And you can see that Pluto there in house 11. House 11 is the collective, but it's also our future. Pluto's in a retrograde, so it's asking us to think very, very carefully about what we want from our futures and how we're all connected. But that conjunction that becomes exact on the 4th of June between Mercury and Jupiter, these are the two planets of trade. And so if you are someone who's a marketeer, or you're selling, buying something, trying to shift something online that you no longer need, that actually can be a very, very helpful aspect. And of course Venus is very, very close to the Sun. They're going to become exact on the 4th as well. So the 4th, the day after Mercury moves into Gemini, can in itself be a powerful day for communications generally. So with that Saturn energy, and you can see that Saturn is actually in a square with the part of fortune in the sign of Gemini, what we need to be mindful of at the outset of Mercury's journey through Gemini, and when they actually clash, which will be at the heart of June, that we are really making sure that we say what we mean and mean what we say. Now, in terms of the event chart from a Placidus viewpoint, the ascendant is just at 1 degrees in Leo. The big takeout for me here is that Mercury's in house 11. So our friendships, therefore, are emphasized in terms of the Placidus influence. Now, I'm using Greenwich as usual, not because I'm based in Britain, but because it's the prime meridian. And I'm also using Universal Central Time, not British summertime. So the ascendant at 1 degrees Leo, and that showcases Mercury in house 11. So the collective of all those energies in Gemini, the stellium, is really very much about the future. It's about friendship, it's about our associations, but it's also pushing us to embrace the higher part of our capabilities as a collective. If we can reach into a way of being where we can collaborate and cooperate, we're all so much stronger. If we recognize through our thinking and our speaking and our discussions, Mercury in Gemini, that actually we have much more in common than what keeps us apart. And of course, Mercury does influence social media, and social media does seem in some ways to be tearing us apart. So if we can use our communications with care over the course of this transit, over the next couple of weeks, there's a lot of very positive things we can achieve. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what you can expect in the next 2 weeks. So Aries, your great gift is your passion and your determination to act on your instincts. But of course, to take that process forwards, we have to interact with others. So the choice of your language is going to be crucial over the next couple of weeks. Now you can start off in a really positive way. So if you do need to interact with people, you can do so with a sparkling intent. And your sense of conviction, but also confidence, is going to be boosted by Jupiter being so close to Mercury as this begins. So whether you want to reinvigorate your social situation, meet up with people and mix and mingle, or it is more to do with job applications or doing well in a job you're already in, your skill as a communicator is really what you have a chance during this 2-week period to refine. But as we do move into that middle of June and we have the clash between the energy of Saturn and Neptune to Mercury, it is going to be very important to be aware that some issues from the past or some opposition could come up that you're not necessarily expecting. So just be a little bit cautious around politics. So if you work in an environment, for example, where you have to watch your back a little bit, do keep your guard up. But that doesn't mean to say you shouldn't be progressive or go for it. It just means you need to be canny and anticipate who might have some kind of angle. So Taurus, as Mercury speeds out of your sign and into the sign of Gemini, the moon is in your sign, which is terrific because that gives you the instinctual guidance to make the right moves. And around your finances and resources, you could make some very positive moves. Because if you look back over the last couple of weeks, as Mercury has been making its way through your sign, the chances are you have been refining something that's important to you. And of course, when Mercury merged with Uranus as May came to a close, it may have felt a little bit overwhelming, almost as if you had too much nervous energy. But now you can convert those ideas into something more tangible, and that's something that you have a real gift for, because you're looking in terms of how you think and how you interact with others to find something that comes from that which is tangible, which is your instincts as an earth sign. But if you are wanting to hear some good news financially, the chances are you can as this event unfolds. It's just that when we have the Cazimi and the square to Saturn and also to Neptune, it's probably best to say that business and pleasure don't always mix. And there could be somebody that you're connected to, that you're fond of, and maybe you get along in lots of different ways. But if you are thinking about a joint project in terms of an enterprise, or you're thinking about loaning someone some money, I really would be very cautious. So in terms of your own personal situation, I think your resources can go through quite an uplift over the next week particularly, but it's the second week where you need to take particular care. Gemini, having Mercury having moved through your 12th house recently has not been easy, particularly at the end of May, because the combination with Uranus may have over-aroused your nervous system to such a degree you found it hard to sit still, or you were suffering with some really difficult stress headaches. Mercury moving into your sign brings you into the present. Some of the anxieties and worries that may have manifested themselves can make way for what can be a tremendously bright period. You're often someone who's inspired by ideas, but most of all, stimulation. So if things have become a little samey, this is a great opportunity for you to start something new or fresh, or reinvigorate something that's important to you with some new approaches. But having Jupiter applying to Mercury straight away and Venus to your Sun on the 4th, and also with Pluto in the mix as well, what a powerful time this is. So I think if you have been waiting for something to really get going, it may have been something that's been in the planning phase for quite some time, possibly as long as about 11 weeks, and may have seemed to have taken ages to really get to the point where it can really burst forwards. But this week can be the time. You can find yourself at the centre of things, and your sparkling personality can really be part of that. So Cancer, as May came to a close and Mercury applied to Uranus, that created a lot of electric energy in the part of your situation with your connections to others. Now, some of these connections may have been very bright and stimulating, but either way, I feel that the move of Mercury into House 12, joining up with Jupiter, which governs the 12th zodiac sign of Pisces, has a real spiritual dimension. So your thinking can be very much about healing, but it can also be very much to do with reminiscing towards your past. And if there are old issues that you feel have not quite been resolved, this would be a perfect time to meditate, go on a retreat, have some treatments which can help to get in touch with that deeper part of your nature. Now, of course, by the 4th, we do have the conjunction between the Sun and Venus, but also Jupiter and Mercury. So a lot of enrichment can come from deepening your perceptions at this time. So if you do find yourself feeling quieter, more analytical, needing a bit of space, don't beat yourself up about it. All the inner work that you're doing now prepares you for when Venus and Mercury jointly move into your sign on the 17th, when you're going to burst into a much more outgoing phase, followed by the summer solstice on the 20th as the Sun arrives in your sign. So Leo, my apologies if it seems like a repetition, but Pluto being in Capricorn saw you have to put a lot in and make a lot of sacrifices for a long time. You're going to get another period of that briefly from the 1st of September based on universal time, from the 2nd based on US time of September through to the 20th of November. But this cluster of energy in Gemini is really this new future that's developing for you, which is much more in keeping with the charismatic identity that you were given when you were born. The Sun is at the heart of all our existences. So having the Sun in the 11th house, and also the natal chart showing the ascendant right at the start of your sign, this is a big opportunity for you to burnish your connections to others, because those links can prove to be incredibly valuable. Or it can also be that your warmth and ability to work collectively with other people can be a way that other people see you as having a lot of potential to work with. So although Pluto was very much about being practical, there's still practical opportunities with this situation. But also the 11th house can be about our connections, and it can be about our social situation. And I think you're in for a lively time over the next 10 days. Once Mercury gets to the Cazimi and clashes with Saturn and thereafter with Neptune, that's more complex. If you're working with someone or trying to collaborate with someone and you can't agree over the finance, that could be a sticking point towards the end of Mercury's transit through Gemini. Virgo, of course, Mercury is your ruler, so Mercury moving on to your 10th house cusp is brilliant if you're thinking of retraining, reskilling, using old skills and experiences in a new way. You have, of course, had Mars in house 8, so that's very deep. Once Mars moves on the 9th of June into the sign of Taurus, it's going to give you much more impetus in terms of being more daring about opening up your world. And because Uranus has been pushing and prodding you to do that since 2019, perhaps it is about your work or your role in life that could go through a big shift at this time. Don't be surprised if you take on more responsibilities, apply for a new job, start your own business. But it is your people skills, not just your very metronomic talent for applying yourself in a very systematic way. It's how you connect with people that's really important. And if you connect well, people will become much more mindful of the talents and those deeper skill sets that you possess. So Libra, Mercury moving into the 9th house of your chart really is going to give you a much greater incentive to widen your horizons. And because Jupiter, the planet which rules the 9th house, is waiting to receive Mercury, what a combination. So if you've been thinking that you'd like to do an added professional qualification, perhaps with an online course, apply to a physical college of higher education for the autumn or spring term if you're down south, or you would just like to get away from it and do something much more spontaneously, book that break, jump in your car and head off somewhere, be much more independent and adventurous. All of those energies are really perfectly primed for you to embrace. But if you are someone who would like to write your own book, or you're in the process of doing that, and you're seeking some kind of outlet for your work, publishing is brightly starred for you within this particular array. But also, the 9th house can be where we enjoy things like art galleries, and we might go to museums, or we could go and watch a show or a band. The way you enrich yourself can be in lots of different ways. It could just be by studying some different philosophies, doing a lot of reading, but whatever it is, it's going to be an incredibly exciting time for you. So about having the confidence to break out. And one of the things that Saturn and Neptune has been doing for longer is reminding you very much of your obligations and responsibilities. But however noble we are, however applied we are, however much we don't want to let people down, it's also good sometimes to just do what's right for us. So don't let your conscientiousness pulverize your passion, particularly in the latter part of Mercury's journey through Gemini, because once Mercury squares off with Saturn and also Neptune, any guilt that you have about not focusing on those daily routines could become stronger. So the window of opportunity to break out and be more spontaneous is almost straight away. Do seize it. So Scorpio, as May came to a close, there may have been some very highly charged conversations. And as you come into Mercury's presence in Gemini, you can start to decipher exactly what was meant. But few people have your gift for that. And having Pluto applying to Mercury in such a profound way means that even if someone surprised you a little bit, or you've been drawn to someone that you may not have been expecting, or there's been a challenge in a relationship, now you can just unpick it. And I feel that you will pretty soon be able to work out exactly what is what for you. Essentially, the 8th house is about where we're invested, it's where we're devoted, it's where we want to be all in. But of course, it's also the sector of deep psychological change. And sometimes things can come to a close. So I feel by the time we get to the Cazimi on the 14th, the square with Saturn and then with Neptune, particularly around your love life, it's either going to work for you as being all in, or you may be thinking about all out. But I think by the middle of June, and when Mercury and Venus move into your 9th house, the truth of a situation will be utterly clear to you by that time, and you will make your decision whether to stick or twist. Sagittarius, having Mercury move into the 7th house is great, to be honest, because that conjunction with Uranus late in May probably really did rev up your nervous system to the point where it was really tough. You may have felt very tense, there may have been those headaches, you may have felt a little irritable, things were generally very brittle. Mercury moving into the 7th house is interesting because even if someone sees something differently to us and that had been aggravating us, now we can just chill out about it a bit more. Mercury being back in Gemini, of course, it's dignified here. Your ruler, Jupiter, is not so strong, of course, in Gemini, but the combination of the two can make you just feel a lot more optimistic about your relationship sector in general. Now, whether you're involved or not, the prospects for you are very strong over the next year, of course, with Jupiter in your 7th house, but that's blessed even more when the Sun and Venus meet on the 4th, but also Mercury and Jupiter become exact, and of course they're linking back to Pluto. So the ideas, the thoughts you have, how you need to express yourself, I think you can do so with aplomb at the start of this transition. Later on, when we have the Cazimi, that could be the kicking off point where maybe the more emotional dimension becomes stronger for you, because 7th house energy is terrific for getting along with people, but it's not always so good if the person we're getting along with takes us for granted. Then we can end up feeling a little bit invisible. So if your relationships are working well, I don't feel that you'll be so conscious of those squares with Saturn and Neptune. But if a relationship isn't working so well in terms of the emotional component, so you may get on well in terms of conversations about this, that and the other, but if you don't feel heard in terms of your feelings, that can become more of a sticking point from around about the 14th of June. So Capricorn, Mercury moving into your 6th house is very redolent of the energy of Virgo. So Mercury's rulership of that sign is about precision. And of course, Mercury's rulership of Gemini is about the quick exchange of ideas. So you could find yourself finding out a lot of information about some practical themes or strands. But also, if there is something you need to think very carefully about, you can do so. Now, because Jupiter is in the 6th house as well, one of the things you won't want to do is rush. But also be conscious of not, if you're applying for a job, for example, don't promise more than you can realistically deliver, because that may be something that doesn't work for you down the track. Now, as Mercury's journey goes on and we get to the 14th and the clash with your ruler, towards the end of this process, you could find yourself becoming almost a little bit too caught up in being too virtuous and trying to achieve too much, particularly if you're making a number of small but important changes. So it's important to try and stay relaxed. 6th house energy can see us be a bit tense and in a way become maybe a bit obsessed with trying to improve or mend or become more virtuous about one particular part of our life. So important to just give yourself some realistic targets over the next couple of weeks that you can think about and refine. But if you are an animal lover, it wouldn't be a surprise if one's heading your way. Or if you have an animal at the present time, their presence in your life can take on even greater value. Aquarius, Mercury moving into this area is fantastic because for you, Mercury not only is the ruler of the second decan of Aquarius, it's exalted, it rises in Aquarius. So you have a great appreciation of Mercury. Also being an air sign, and because Pluto in your sign is forging an amazing link with Mercury, and on this day with Jupiter exactly, and on the 4th with Mercury exactly, if there's something you want to express that's important to your identity, Pluto in your sign, but how you showcase the most positive version of yourself, what a supreme opportunity you have. The glitch could come later on in Mercury's journey when it squares up with Saturn and Neptune. So that's suggesting, because House 5 can be about speculation and risk, if you are someone who wants to have a punt on something, that you do stay mindful of what you can really afford, because Saturn in the second house has perhaps been quite restraining in terms of finances over the last year. But equally, if you're talking about something that's to do with your talent and someone's trying to price it up, you may need to stand up for yourself strongly. And once Mercury and Venus move on the 17th, I think you'll start to see the value of what this creative, very warm, a very charismatic period of the year can bring back to you in terms of a return. But you're certainly setting the scene on this event, and there's everything to go for. So Pisces, Mercury moving into House 4 can have a bit of a gotcha. Mercury for me in House 4 is when the emotion of House 4, which is more about how we feel about things, doesn't quite work with Mercury, which is more about detachment and about analysis. So if you're okay with analysing and being a bit more detached about some of your home, family and emotional situations, that's cool. But Mercury here can see us circulate thoughts around our mind and find it more difficult to say how we feel. But because your ruler Jupiter receives Mercury, I feel that Jupiter is going to soften that more ragged edge that Mercury can have in the 4th house, and encourage it really to find its voice. And because Venus, which is exalted in your sign, is going to be combining with the Sun on the 4th in the 4th house, that again can provide some soothing energies. So I think generally you're going to be thinking and talking a lot about where you live, how you live there and who with. Or you could be talking a lot about family matters, or you may be thinking about your emotional situation. If you started talking to a counsellor at this time, it would be a very valuable exercise, I feel. And if you are also thinking about redecorating or buying some new soft furnishings, that can all be part of the calculus. And of course, Mercury is about talking. The 4th house could be about a contractor that you're talking about coming in to do some jobs for you. But as Saturn in your sign and Neptune apply to Mercury from the middle of the month, that could create a little bit of a tricky period. So if someone's not really coming through in the way you want, that can be a time when you may find yourself being a little firmer about what you will and won't accept. But do know that from the 17th, Mercury and Venus move into one of the most glorious parts of your chart. So this period over the next couple of weeks is very much to do with how you feel about things, but a brighter, more outgoing and more sociable phase is heading your way very soon. It's been a real pleasure being with you, sharing all about Mercury. I hope you have a great next couple of weeks, and please do like, comment, share or help the channel to grow by subscribing.